everybody, and welcome to our latest episode of Horrifically Horrifying, presented by the Hollywood Critics Association. My name is Heather Wixson. Unfortunately, my co-host Kevin Taft is off this week, and that is no joke, as you'll see, as that's going to tie into our theme in a little bit. But I am joined by the one and only James Oster. Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, I'm so glad to be back. I'm excited. I love doing this with you.
You're our first returning guest. I know.
Woo!
I'm so bummed Kevin's not here. This was just such a tough weekend,
Ah,
I think, from schedule wise. So I'm glad that you're here because we are going to dive into all things related to April Fool's Day, which is going to be celebrating
woo.
its 35th anniversary this weekend.
35 years. 35
Yes.
years. I have so much to say about this movie. I'm so excited. When you were talking about doing this episode, I got giddy. I got giddy because I love this movie.
I also got giddy. It's one of my favorites. It's fun to see. It's been welcomed back into the fold, I guess you
Hmm.
could say, from horror fans. But for a long time, this was definitely one of those movies where I like to take it to sleepovers, simply because the lack of real gore
Yeah.
and nudity meant parents were going to be pissed at me when the night was over.
Hmm.
I would bring this in sleepaway camp to sleepovers, and let's just say sleepaway camp was met with less enthusiasm than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, I have been a huge April Fool's Day nerd pretty much since I picked up that VHS the first time in 1987. And I'm curious, was this something you discovered on VHS too? Did you see it in theaters?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it in theaters. I found it on VHS. I had a big old crush and admiration, actually. I will say admiration for Deborah Foreman. I was a fan because I'd caught her Valley Girl. I caught My Chauffeur. I was and then Amy Steele. I was like, why have I not seen this? This is an awesome cover. I like the with
The
the
noose and the
noose.
braid.
Oh my god, I love that. And I honestly, I fell in love with that. I bought the video cassette. I was like, oh my god, I watched this thing ridiculous times. And it's funny because I wasn't aware of how uncool it was for a while.
Me either. Like, to me, I thought it was always like the coolest of the slashers because one, it really wasn't a slasher,
Mm-hmm.
and it really sort of preys on the unexpectedness for viewers, where if you haven't seen this movie, like, you're going to go in expecting one thing and you're going to get a totally different experience.
Yeah.
So for me, always getting to see somebody react to what happens is like the coolest thing, because if you don't know it's coming, like, you're like, oh wow, what, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that people didn't like that about it. I
Yeah.
think people need to loosen up a little bit, because slashers don't have to just be one thing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I think
Well,
that's what this one gets right, is that it really takes a lot of chances.
and I think that's why it's like you said, it went through this phase where it wasn't cool. And I read a lot of, like, online reactions or people going, oh, stupid. And I won't give anything away for people who haven't seen it,
I
although.
feel like we have to, I mean, there's no way
Yeah,
to
you
not talk
kind of
about
do,
this
right?
movie.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're
So
right.
there's
Okay,
going to be
no.
spoilers, guys.
So yeah, spoiler alert. Obviously there weren't any real kills, and I remember people complaining about that, and people going, "Oh, it's not this, it's this, it doesn't have this and that," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it was really creative." And then I honestly believe April Fool's Day was one of those movies that kind of led to movies like Scream,
Yeah.
led to movies that were a little more meta, a little more fun, and it did it in such an genuinely I, enjoyable, sweet way. There's
Yeah.
something really absolutely charming about this movie, like on every level.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also too, what really solidifies April Fool's Day is, as being one of my favorite slashers from this decade, is this cast and these characters. Because I think,
One.
because our director is Fred Walton, who had previously done When a Stranger Calls.
Mm-hmm.
It's written by Donald O'Back, who had just come off of Beverly Hills Cop.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy can write a script. And the thing is, it's like, the backstory to this whole scenario of why this came about was Frank Mancuso Jr. had sort of already reached had sort of experienced some really good success with the Friday 13th series and wanted to do something different, but
Oh
still
wait,
wanted
Friday
to do
the 13th. I've
slasher.
never heard that.
Yeah,
Is that a movie?
it's this is like a little independent movie, and
Oh, good.
they
Okay.
had a few sequels.
Oh, good. I'll look out for those.
Yes, but I'll tell you, they make a big change between 1 and 2, which apparently is the thing. So, but yeah, so basically, Frank was looking to kind of capitalize on the success of Friday 13th and slashers and things like that. But he wanted to do something different because by 86, we are 8 years removed from Halloween. Everybody's seen and done everything. And so he's like, let's mix it up a little bit. So he brings in Donald O'Back, who is not a genre writer by nature. He's generally a comedy writer. And, for all intents and purposes, if I were to categorize this as a horror comedy or a comedy horror, I would definitely go comedy horror because it leans way more into comedy than it does horror. But
For sure.
you don't really know it until you get there, which again, I think is one of the strengths of it, because it does sort of change the perspective of what you're going to be seeing as you're kind of playing along with the mystery. But the heart of all of this is this cast and these characters, because you care about all of them. They're like, by the time they get to Muffy's Island, before we even meet Muffy, although we do get a sense of her in the beginning when she's moving around mannequins in her basement, which you never trust anybody who's moving mannequins in their basement.
No, God, no.
Anybody who keeps mannequins in their basement immediately raises my red flags. But this cast and these characters, like they feel so real. There's some slashers kind of get a bad rap for like giving you like the buffet of our archetypes.
Yeah.
And I would say to a degree, this movie does it too, but in a way that doesn't feel like they're stock characters. Like, sure, Tom Wilson in this movie is the comedian, the jester, the ha 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 guy who's always making laughs, but yet there's something sort of awkward and endearing about his performance in the same token.
He's a nice guy. You actually like him. He's not a jerk. None of them are jerks. None of them are bad people. They're all, you can see why they're friends. Even Hal, who sticks out like a sore thumb with his little accent.
Yeah.
There's something charming about the dude. It's like Harv or Hal or what. I love the fact that, like, you see, it's the characters, it's the actors. They chose a lot of really, really solid talent here.
Yeah.
Every single one of these actors, Griffin O'Neill, Deborah Foreman, I know I'm going to miss a few, Clayton Rohner, Amy Steele, who is, I'm sorry, Amy Steele and Deborah Foreman, two of the best leading ladies in horror ever, period.
And Amy Steele, I would argue, is probably one of the greatest, quote unquote, I'm not a fan of the term necessarily, but for all intents and purposes, she is probably one of the best final girls. And she does it in 2 different Frank Mancuso movies. Also, fun fact, both Friday 2 and April Fool's Day have weird hot dog gags in them, which is like my favorite thing.
Yes, they do. Oh my God.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that. Yes, you're right.
Yes.
You're right.
We do hot dog jokes in both movies. So
hot dog.
Hot dog indeed. This is Hot Dog the video show. We're gonna be talking about all of our favorite hot dog scenes in horror coming up.
Woo!
God, I can't wait till that listicle comes out.
I know.
But yeah,
Can we do Hot Dog the movie for fun? Just, I know it's a comedy, but okay,
yeah,
cool.
I haven't watched it in, since I was a kid. Probably when I shouldn't have been watching it. But yeah, like you mentioned Deborah Foreman, who was coming off of Valley Girl. From what I remember from our interview, like she had to kind of do a lot of convincing to get them to put her in this role. Because I think I feel bad because I wrote about this like 5 years ago, so it's not totally fresh in my mind. But if you're anybody who's interested, if you want to read some cast and crew interviews, they're over on Daily Dead. But Deborah, she had to really convince them that she could do this role because there is sort of this inherent slyness to it. And I think she came in almost too polished for Fred Walton's liking, so there was a little, a little consideration there. I know Amy Steele was a shoo-in. Because of her work with Frank before. And I want to say, I feel like Clayton Rohner and Deborah Goodrich had worked together on something else prior to this. Were they both in Just One of the Guys?
I believe so. I believe she was in that. Yes. Yeah. Just
okay. I think he was in that as well.
Yes, he
That's
was. He
yeah. So
was.
that's something I need to rewatch too because I watched it a lot when I was a
It's a
kid.
cute movie.
It
It's a cute
is.
movie. Yeah.
Really makes you think. But it's funny because I remember even for the more like not so fun characters, like you have Leah Pinsett who plays Nan,
Mm-hmm.
who is I relate to Nan because like I'm somebody who wants to go have fun, but I also take life way too seriously sometimes. So I need to get the stick out of my butt.
Yeah.
So that's what I've
Well,
always kind of liked about her.
I agree, and I also like I like the thing about this when you collect a group of actors who are supposed to get knocked off in a horror movie. I want to see that connection, and I was watching it today just in preparation for this, and one of the things that I thought was really charming that I don't really think about is how fucking oh my gosh, me
Whatever.
swearing again. Yeah, I
Yeah, me
remember.
too.
I
Who
can
knows?
say it now. Yeah, Ken Noland and Amy Steele, the chemistry is shockingly good. They're so cute together, and you're
Yeah.
like, this whole cast is adorable.
Yeah.
Crazy. Listen, I mean, they're talented as hell, but they're all so cute too. They're all just so freaking adorable.
Well, and the thing is too, like when you look at this movie in terms of when it was released and the types of movies that were coming out before it, when you think about how women are portrayed in horror
Mm-hmm.
movies during the 80s and how women's sexuality is portrayed in horror movies in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
you either were labeled the prude or the slut in
Yeah.
most cases. Then also, women were always being pursued. They weren't the ones who were sort of the people in charge. And what's really great about April Fool's Day when you look at it, it's really the women's show. Like,
Yes.
Kit is the one who initiates, having sex with Rob in the dock house.
Mm-hmm.
When they come across Skip floating by.
Mm-hmm.
Buffy is in control to the point where she's like shooting down, Hal, she's shooting down Arch, and she's very much, steering her own ship there. And then
Mm-hmm.
even somebody like Nikki, who, is very, obviously very promiscuous,
Free spirited.
not in a bad way, but she likes sex.
No.
The girl likes sex. Good for her. Go get it.
Good for her.
You're
Yeah.
young. Jesus Christ, enjoy it.
And gorgeous. She's beautiful. Good for
yeah.
her. Good for her.
And and her character is never mistreated because of that.
Never.
And for me, like when you look
She's
at
in control. She's absolutely in control. Even when everything she does, she's in control. And it's a beautiful performance from Deborah Goodrich too. I mean, I really liked Nikki a lot.
Yeah.
It didn't cheapen her in any way. But it also didn't cheapen the men either. It didn't feel like, it feels weirdly relevant. The film feels, even today, it feels like a movie that could have been made today.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
It's not very dated for an 80s movie, which is kind of strange. Because most of the times, I mean, even the outfits, I'm just like, if I saw anybody wearing these outfits, like, I don't even know if I would look twice. Like,
no. Clayton Roder's dress is awesome, man. I'm like, I want to dress like that, dude. I wouldn't look as good though. I wouldn't look as cool. But
do you remember the phase in the 90s when you could get away with wearing like PJ pants and that was like fashion?
Yeah.
Like, can we bring that back? I mean, we kind of did through the pandemic.
Kind of did.
But like for real, like I want to go work a junket in PJ pants and everybody think I'm cool.
Oh my
gosh. I miss those days. Like the blue and I used to wear like blue and green plaid pants to school and stuff. The 90s were a good time, kids. You don't even know.
Yes, they were.
But yeah, so to me, it's this movie because one, I love the fact that it's Fred Walton directing because to me, when I was a kid, one of my biggest sort of surprise movies that I can really remember, and I know it wasn't the progenitor of this, the calls are coming from inside the house, but I can still remember watching When a Stranger Calls when I was a kid. And it's funny because that section's only like part of the movie.
It's the first 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, it has stuck with me and like it literally never left my subconscious or my consciousness, like ever since I saw it at like 7 years old. Which also made you really paranoid when you would be babysitting and stuff like that.
I know, right?
Yeah, thankfully, like most of the times I was babysitting when I was younger, it was always just like in a 1-level house. So it's like once you get to the 2-story houses and you start making the good money, then you're like, okay, is there somebody already in the house? What have they done to the children? Yeah. So I think it's interesting because in his career, he's directed these 2 different movies that have sort of taken these ideas that we sort of know from thrillers and horror movies and things like that, and sort of turn them on their head in a very unexpected way.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. And in fact, they didn't even want to hire him when he first was looking to do this.
Oh
Like,
wow.
he was just looking for a job, and I think they were looking for more of a comedy director. And he really, really pushed hard and hard because he thought this could be something really cool and clever and different.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, they were like, okay, yeah, you're right, we need to do something.
Well, it
You know,
still has suspense. It's still the scene where Amy Steele is kind of going around and they're kind of investigating everything and finding all the clues as to what's going on. There's some legitimate creepiness about him, and when Muffy and Buffy, that whole thing happens, you're kind of like, wow, that's kind of creepy. That's kind of scary. It's actually an interesting villain. It's a very good, interesting villain, and it's kind of badass. I mean, it's scary enough that you don't necessarily need the gore. You don't
no,
necessarily need all that stuff because the atmosphere and the mood and the characters are there. You have something, and look, I think when the stranger calls, I want to jump back to that a little bit
yeah,
because I know that movie. I know a lot of people have issues with the middle section because it's the guy. It's from the killer's point of view, and then it's a little bogged down into a crime drama type of thing.
yeah,
But
fair enough, totally.
I still think it's for a movie to hit you that I had the same reaction. Like I remember that first 20 minutes and the last 10 minutes scared the fuck out of me. I was just like, this could happen. I know it. And then, I also want to give props because he returned to that. And When a Stranger Calls Back, so underrated.
I haven't
Such a
seen it in a really long time, and I've been wanting to, so that gives
Watch it
me a
again.
good
Oh my
excuse.
god. It was on I was doing I don't know, I think I was just kind of watching a bunch of 80s horror movies and I happened upon When the Stranger Calls and I was like, "Oh, I'll watch that again." And I liked it and it still held up pretty well. And I was like, "I'm going to watch When a Stranger Calls Back." I think it's better. I think it's better than
Interesting.
the original because the horror holds up a lot better and you have Carol Kane's there. I liked Jill Schoelen. I thought she was a very interesting character, and I really like what he does. I like his style. I'm sad that he didn't make more horror, because I think
Yeah.
he's really good at it, and making kind of this mystery horror that kind of is a little suspenseful. It's not over your head like knives popping into people's eyes type of thing. Although an eye does pop out in April Fool's Day. Let's be fair.
Not
Kind of.
kind
Not
of.
really.
Not really, but sort of.
It
Dangles.
looks like one. It
Yeah.
looks like one.
I still want to know how, like, knowing what I know about special effects, like how somebody submerged in water is attaching a latex appliance to his face, because that's pretty advanced work for somebody who isn't a special effects person. Or actually, no, he was
He was
he
the
was he
yeah
was the special effects guy.
yeah he was the special effects guy.
Okay, because I was trying to remember, because
He could just. I mean, this drives me crazy when it comes to horror. When you see a horror film, and I know there's sometimes it goes a little too far, like the the disbelief level of disbelief is a little hard to get over. But I see something like that, and and I actually thought the same thing. I'm like, well, that's pretty impressive because we know the story, we know what's going on, we know what's not real. But it's sometimes easy to look past that because I'm
oh,
like,
it totally is.
with this, but some movies you're like, come on,
Yeah.
come on, that's just it's implausible, it's impossible. But I feel like that they did a good enough job of making it like, okay, they you do have the you have to also figure, okay, so whoever's doing this has to tell these people, hey, this is what's going on in the midst of these big murder sequences, and you're just kind of like, okay, no, sure, because it's handled. I guess the kills are handled in such a way that you're kind of like, okay. The biggest problem is the that I think there's underwater. It seems a little improbable.
Yeah, yeah. I also think it's interesting too, because he's like, "Oh, I just redressed all these props to make them look like you guys," and I was like, but look at the sculpt on their faces, like the severed arch head. Like I'm like, that looks like you went and did a life cast, my friend. But I'm gonna suspend my disbelief for that. But I'm still kind of like, that is like an extremely spot on likeness for Tom Wilson.
He's a
So
very, 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 very talented makeup artist.
yes, very. It just happens to be not working in Hollywood and just happens to be living the Martha Vineyard life out
Yeah,
there
why
working on
not?
boats. Sure.
Speaking of, how we, so okay, I am gonna admit this. It took me forever to realize that that was Biff. It took me forever to
I
realize
think
that
that's
that was Biff.
adorable.
I just this is gonna sound crazy, but I felt like I never really got into the Back to the Future thing
Okay.
as a kid. It just never appealed to me because I was strictly a horror kid. I liked horror, and I didn't really. I saw it and I liked it, and I was a fan of Leah Thompson, so I was like, I have to see it. But I still, as growing up, I've grown to love the movies. But so I didn't really have that kind of thing, and I remember watching it one time, April Fool's Day, and I was like, huh, the guy who that's Biff. And my wife's like, yeah, that's Biff. I was like, I should know this. I should know this, but it was one of those things where I just never put two and two together, and because I just wasn't as a kid a huge Back to the Future fan. Appreciate it much more now, but
Yeah.
and he's really phenomenal in the movie. Him and Griffin O'Neill have this really fun little chemistry. There's a lot of chemistry here.
Yeah.
There's a lot, like, with each couple, each character, how they interact with each other. Even Nan has great chemistry dealing with Buffy or Muffy, depending on who you're talking to or talking about. I like that, and I feel like there's a lot of care put into the relations with this group of actors. Did they have? I mean, did they talk about rehearsal? Did they have time to kind of?
They basically moved them out to that island in Vancouver. The house that they shot at was actually the house that they shot, I believe, five easy pieces in.
Oh shit, that's cool.
Because there was like a placard on the wall that they had to remove when they were shooting that said it on there.
Oh nice.
But that's a house that like regularly gets rented out in that area. And I think they basically just moved around the island, and there was like that house, couple hotels and like restaurants and stuff. So it was just them running around the island. It's interesting you mentioned Griffin O'Neill because he had a very sort of troubled life that kind of was culminating during this experience to where he was doing a lot of crazy things. Like I think one day he just bought a car outright, and then was like
Wow.
driving like 90 miles per hour and things like that. Like it was, he was doing some questionable things from what I've gathered from interviews,
Wow.
which I think is part of the reasons that he's not used as much, because they also, in sort of changing the dynamic of Skip, with, because I don't know if you knew, but there's like other endings to this.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know. I haven't
There's two.
seen. Okay, were they shot? I don't remember if they were
They
actually
were they
shot or
were
was it.
shot. They've never been released. I think they're pretty much
Okay,
lost. But
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah.
there's one ending where Skip actually kills Muffy for her inheritance. Like he full on kills her after everybody leaves.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So then it goes like full horror. And then there's another ending where it was everybody goes home and they're all together like around a campfire, and they were like, oh, we need to get back at Muffy. So then they go back to the island and sneak on there to basically pull all these pranks on Muffy after the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of ends the way the movie actually ends, with like her with the Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
But I think they just figured at that point, like, you've already built it all up, you're let out the release, you can't really do it again at that point. And I think that was probably a smart idea. But I'm because initially Skip was sort of supposed to be playing it as like the jealous brother type, even though he's said he's a distant cousin at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think his character was supposed to be a little more sinister instead of being a little more erratic and sad, to building up to this idea where he was going to come and kill her for the inheritance.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, so kind of interesting.
I'm kind of glad they ended it the way they did. I think that's. I feel like. Did you ever see? I'm sure you have. You've seen the original ending of Clerks, right?
Yes.
And it's like I love it. It's fucking ballsy as hell, but it's depressing.
Yeah.
It's like you watch it, and I'm like, I just had this really joyful time with these crude dudes talking about crazy shit, and suddenly you kill one off, and I'm just like, well, that's kind of depressing. I don't know if and I feel like had they gone that route with the character, I don't know. I kind of would have left a. It would have killed the joy a little bit.
I don't think we'd have Clerks too.
Yeah, no, but and the same thing with April Fool's Day. Had they gone that route, I get it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little bit of a surprise, and sometimes that works. Sometimes it works, but I don't know if it would have worked with that. It would have really changed the tone of the film in so many ways that I don't know. Like, it's such a fun movie. You don't want to drown it out and like, oh yeah, we're gonna really kill the lead person that we've been spending all this time with and gotten to know. I don't know. I like the fact that no one dies in the movie. I think that's kind of a big spoiler.
Yeah.
Although here's the thing, like if you're watching this and you've never watched April Fool's Day, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, at this point now we've got the Scream Factory Blu-ray, which came out a few years ago.
I gotta get that actually. I do not have that.
I have it, but I bought it on Vudu years ago because it was like part of their Halloween sale that they were doing.
Yeah.
So I got that and Silver Bullet for like 99 cents each. So, and I'm lazy when I'm watching stuff, so if I can just cue it up on my TV without having to move, I'm gonna do that. So, but yeah, I do have the April Fool's Day Blu-ray. I just haven't had a chance to go in it. And sometimes I appreciate what Scream Factory does in terms of being this champion for these types of movies and giving such great care. I don't necessarily love the direction that their special features have taken over the last 2 years, where it's sort of like 10 5-minute interviews.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm and that's on me. Like that's on
Fair
me.
enough.
I know everybody watches these things differently, but like if you want me to watch 8 interviews that are all 10 minutes each, or you give me a 60-minute mini doc, I am going to appreciate that 60-minute mini doc more than I am those separate interviews that have sort of a sameness to them where they're just, and again, they do great work. They do a lot of really incredible interviews. So it's all about my preference. I'm just a nerd who really just likes to sort of settle in for these kind of things. And like how they did it for like all their Halloween featurettes that they did for their box set. Like I remember the Halloween 4 one, I think is like an hour and 20 minutes. It's almost as long as the movie is. And I watched every single moment of it. So it's one of those where I'm like, I appreciate the care that they put into it. And I love all the stuff that they dig up. But at the same time, I'm a nerd who wants to just sit down and just immerse me in this for an hour. I don't care. Like, just give it to me. And Arrow's done the same thing over the years too. A lot of them do it. And I get it because like the having all those little bullet points sells. You know what I mean? It sells. And I get it. And that's it's the business of it. But I'm like, I'm old fashioned. I've worked on some special features. Like all of ours were like each one of our little mini docs was like 40 to 50 minutes each because we want people to really feel like they're part of whatever that story is that we're trying to tell them. So, but that's just me. But like I will say, I did watch the movie itself once through the Blu-ray. Gorgeous.
Oh, okay.
But the Voodoo looks great too because that was a 2K restoration. I think this. I don't remember if Scream Factory is 2 or 4, but it looked a little bit better than Voodoo did because then you also get like the degradation with their servers and stuff like that. But it's just I love living in this day and age where like all of my favorite movies are getting like special releases. Although it's funny, one of my favorite movies is Vamp, and so when the Arrow put the special Blu-ray out, I kind of I didn't go for it because I love was it Anchor Bay or RLJE? I think it was RLJE put out.
I think so.
Their Blu-ray for it is really fun because it has all these old school New World Pictures trailers on it.
Oh yeah, right.
So I was like, I don't want to upgrade really because I love that presentation so much.
Well, that's for you. I think that's a double dip. I think you can double dip.
Eventually, I'll get there because there's
you get the best of both worlds. Yeah. I love Vamp, but I think it's you are one of the few people that even knows that movie exists. Like
That's what I've written about a lot too.
yeah, and that's one of the things I've always liked about you is we do tend to like a lot of the same cheesy movies that we grew up on. You know,
We know the good stuff.
fuck yeah. I'm saying that too much. I'm sorry.
Don't even worry about it. I don't think we're rated. I don't know.
Oh,
Whatever.
good,
Who cares?
good.
So if you're trying to place yourself in the cast of April Fool's Day, who are you most like? Are you a Chaz? Are you an Arch? Are you a Harv?
I would say I'm definitely not a Harv. I don't have that kind of drive. I would say I would probably run into the Ken Oland. I think I would be him. I think that I related a little. I relate to his character. I'm a big fan of Ken Oland. I think he's a really, for what he's done. I know he's works a lot on TV, I believe. I always liked his horror stuff, and I always liked his summer school. He was really funny.
Yeah.
But the character specifically, I think I kind of relate to. Definitely. That's who I would be. Or a Muffy and Buffy because I'm crazy.
So it's funny because like Rob to me is like the dry character out of all of them. Which he even like when I interviewed Ken, he was like, yeah, he was like, it was kind of an interesting situation for me because everybody else had these really fun characters and I was just mad. He was like, I was just mad about
He's angry.
life in school, med school. And he was like, and so everybody else is having fun and being funny and weird. And he was like, and I was just mad. And I just thought that was funny.
That would be me at that age.
I see more now these days as like an Arch.
I can see that. Yeah. Well, I don't wear collars, so I can't do collar up or collar down.
Okay.
But yeah, no,
I mean, there's still time. You can incorporate collars in. No,
I can.
You know,
I would have to wear a
2021.
collar.
You could do anything.
That is correct. Nothing is. Everything's available now.
Yeah,
we can
nothing's
do it all.
off the table anymore.
Well, what about you? Which character do you see yourself as?
I mean, I wish I could say I was like a Kit, but I know I'm more of a Nan because I'm just such a stick in the mud sometimes, and I'm always
not.
I'm always working. I'm always working. Like I'm always working. But I'd like to think that part of me is kind of like Kit, where like if I was in this situation, I could solve everything and be proactive. And try to have sex with Ken Oland in the dock house. That's okay. You know.
I like the fact that he looked like he's wearing his briefs. He's undressed, at least semi undressed.
Oh yeah, it's like the total opposite of most horror movies where the girls are scantily clad. Like they're like, oh no, we're just gonna put him out there, out there.
And what's weird is it's not like he's got the perfect body. He's kind of chubby a little bit, like not super buff.
He's doing all right.
He's fine. He's not like nowadays you need to like if you have a like Cabin in the Woods, you have Chris Hemsworth. Oh yeah, my 6-pack abs. It's like I like the fact that he looked like a real person. You know what I'm saying? He's good looking guy. Don't get me wrong, but like he looks like a real person. They all look like real people.
Yeah,
like, they all look like Deborah Goodrich is gorgeous, but she also looks like she could be your neighbor. She looks like she could be someone you went to school with. And, they all, there's something about it. It's just, I don't know. It's a lot of times, like you said earlier, it's like that kind of stereotype that follows horror so much. I just didn't feel it here at all. I even like the the side characters, the dude that basically runs the little I can't even talk. The fairy, my God, he's delightful in this movie. Oh my, especially at the
end. I don't get paid overtime, you goddamn kids.
Yeah, and at the end, he's got that kind of like, oh, I haven't done much acting. You're like, oh, I love you. You're awesome. I love every character in this movie. I love these character. I love I love the script. There's something about this movie that is so weirdly relevant because I feel like we've seen so many movies kind of rip it off a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that says something. I think we're seeing if you look at movies today like Final Girls, or I'm trying to think of what else I've seen recently that would fit into this character. Like Scream, whatever, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I feel like that a lot of movies kind of inspired that, found the humor. Maybe not I Know What You Did Last Summer, but definitely Scream. I feel like a lot of movies kind of have. This movie has become a classic over
Yeah.
time. It wasn't. It was kind of the you know the movie that people like to pick on, but even today the IMDb score is pretty high. I hear more people talk. Oh yeah, I really like that movie. You know, and it had a bad remake,
I
which
never saw the remake.
I don't. You know, here's the thing. I don't remember the remake at all. I don't think it had anything to do. There may have been like a Muffy or a Buffy or something like that, but it had nothing to do with this film. It wasn't even. It was like a. It was a remake that wasn't a remake. There was no reason for it to be called a remake, and I believe they did. I believe they pushed it as a remake, but it
Well,
not at all.
apparently there's a hosting of a party at a mansion,
Mm-hmm.
and the main character, it's her brother, so they're not even playing coy with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, Scout Taylor Compton was in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, and the Butcher Brothers did that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh
It wasn't
boy.
good. The problem with it, I think when I watched it, it was one of those where I literally don't remember a thing about it. I don't remember
Okay, first of all,
anything.
can we talk about the names in this movie? Because we talk about like the names from the first movie, and it's like,
Okay.
okay, Muffy and Buffy is extreme, but I think that's representative of who she is and her stature in society. Because you
Absolutely
have like
fits.
Kit and Nan and
Mm-hmm.
Rob and like Arch and like such normal names. So these are some of the names from the remake. We have Desiree Cartier, her brother Blaine Cartier.
Blaine.
Blaine. I mean, first of all, you know, if a character's named Blaine, James Spader's taught me, if a character is named Blaine, he's an asshole.
He's an asshole. Absolutely.
Like, we don't even have to guess. I already know everything I need to know about that character because of James Spader. God bless him. Then there's Torrance Caldwell, which just sounds like somebody who's picking out cool suburbs around LA for their character names. Then we just have Ryan, which is funny. We also have a Barbie Reynolds.
Oh my god.
And then we have Charles Lansford, which I think feels like a character like you would have seen in like Dynasty or like
Or
Falcon
Prince and the
Crest.
Showgirl. He's like that was something Laurence Olivier played in the 50s.
Yeah, Charles Lansford. That's very, very classic Hollywood. And then we also have Milan Hastings.
Milan. Well, I mean, had it been Melania, there would have been a whole thing.
Yes. So anyway, I don't feel like I've.
You're not missing much. I'm
So
going to be honest.
anyway, well, here's the thing. I'm reading Wikipedia as we're talking this. So apparently, it looks like Blaine. So they do the thing where they fake out Desiree, thinking that the Blaine is trying to pretend that he's killed everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But he ends up killing her in the end. Sorry if I've ruined April Fool's Day remake for everybody watching. So they go with the original sort of idea of the original film.
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to hate watch this in a way, but who
I
has that
kind of want
kind
you
of
to.
time?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like, who wants to watch a movie like look? We as critics, as if we review films or if we do junkets or whatever we do, we're assigned movies and we have to see those movies. I don't even watch trailers half the time because I want to just go in fresh. But like, I don't want to watch a movie like, oh, dude, you gotta watch it. It's so fucking bad. You're gonna hate this movie. It's so bad. I'm like, then no.
Yeah, I don't have time for hate watches, but I might have to do
No.
this. It's 15th anniversary is in 2023, so that gives me 2 years to catch up on everything else good to watch, so I can get ready for the 15th anniversary of the remake.
We can always talk about it. We can do this show.
We're around in 2 years.
Yes,
We'll make
I
a
will.
date.
For that, I'll rewatch it. For that, I will rewatch because I remember like I feel like there was a beginning sequence that was a prank, and it. I think I don't even. You know what? I may have turned it off. I think I stopped watching it. I think it was one of those where I just rented it for fun because I'm a huge. Look, I'll see almost anything when it comes to horror, and especially a remake, especially of a movie that I love. 90% of the time, I'm disappointed. I mean, very rarely do the remakes hold up. But and that was the time there was The Fog, that horrible,
Oh
awful
yeah, I
remake.
skipped that.
The Hitcher, the
Prom night.
Prom Night. Oh my, Prom Night. Like, wait, Prom Night it didn't have. It was like a, again, had really little to do with the original film.
I've only seen parts of it on cable. I actually never watched that one. I did watch The Fog though. I
I
paid to see it in a theater too, which was
Whoa.
yeah.
Oh,
I didn't.
so
I mean,
sorry.
I didn't know
So
what was I.
sorry.
Well,
I
you
did
win
not.
some, you lose some.
I rented The Fog, and I remember I literally within 20 minutes I turned it off. No, I fast forwarded it to the end because I wanted to see how it ended. That's the only thing I cared about. But I was like, how can you have this cast, a really good cast for the most part, they were pretty solid, and make such an awful film? And I went and watched the original because I'm like, to me that is one of John Carpenter's best films. I love
I
The
agree.
Fog. It's almost a perfect film, almost a perfect ghost story, and I hated that remake, and but I look, every so often a remake that gets like brutalized, like When a Stranger Calls. I know a lot of people hated that, and I wasn't a fan. But I was
I don't
like,
remember hating it, but I just was kind of like,
yeah,
oh, okay, all
that
right.
was my reaction. I was like, that's kind of. I mean, sure, okay. I don't feel like It wasn't the end of the world to me. I didn't. I don't. I remember more of that than I remember more of the April Fool's Day remake.
Obviously.
Yeah,
So yeah, so we'll meet in 2 years and we'll talk April Fool's Day remake. See how
I'm
that
in.
goes.
I'm in.
Oh boy. Well, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that's probably a good note to sort of end on for this week.
Yeah.
Jimmy, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Joe Blow. You can sometimes find me at Arrow in the Head. You can find me at We Live Entertainment. You can find me a lot on Cosm, with my show Sounds Scary, and of course Something Stony, where I'm just getting high. So you should come on that one too.
I don't know if the world's ready for it. I don't know if they're ready for that.
And of course, where can people find you?
People can find me over at dailydead.com, pretty much for the most part. Recently, I got to do a piece for the Shutter weekly newsletter, so that was pretty
Oh,
cool. Got to write
wow.
about killer inanimate objects, so that was pretty fun.
Nice.
Yes, I will be in the next issue of Fangoria. I got to profile Aaron Kruger Mikash and Mike Mikash, so that was
Oh,
pretty
very
nifty.
cool.
Yeah, and sometimes I do some stuff over at Council of Zoom, which is a UK site. I just got to write a piece on Cobra Kai.
Oh, nice.
So yes, I love when I get to venture outside of horror just a little bit here and there. So
Yeah.
and then I also have a book that's up for pre-order called Monsters. What the heck is it called again? I don't know. Monsters Makeup and Effects, Volume 1. You can find out more about that at amink.com. And I'm hanging out on Twitter at the Horror Chick.
Woo.
So yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm on Twitter too, and I'm on all that stuff. Jimmy to the O and James Oster on Facebook and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
And I'm a Cameo, so if you want to rent a Cameo, hey,
Nobody got me a Jimmy O cameo for my birthday. I'm so disappointed.
I will give you one for free.
Oh boy, I would
give you
never
one
dream
for
of that. I
free.
would never want to use our friendship in that manner. So wow, I didn't even know. Like, how does a cameo business work? Like
I'm
a less
not.
sexy OnlyFans?
It's yeah, basically. I'm not. I've done very few. I'm not that popular. I mean, I do a few, but I don't know. It's just fun. I feel a little silly, to be honest. Like, it just feels weird to go, hey, rent me, I can say hi, but every so often someone's a fan of the site, or a fan of, they want to be a film critic or anything like that. I don't know. Mine are more straightforward and more just, some people get really creative, and I'm just like, wow, I got to figure out how to get that creative, because that's cool. I'm working on that. I'm working with because I do TikTok too, kind of. I'm
Okay.
not good at it, but like I feel a little self conscious with getting a little wacky, so but never know. You never say never, right?
Never say never. So yes. So thank you so much again, Jimmy, for doing this week.
My pleasure.
Yes, and for all of you guys watching, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Bye.
Bye.